What's going on, guys? Another crazy day in the markets, especially for Bitcoin. Nothing much for SPY, pretty standard. Bitcoin seeing a massive sell-off from the highs in one swift candle. SPY still continuing to ignore all bad news. Continuing to ignore the riots, ignoring the China trade deal falling through, ignoring the lockdowns, probably going to ignore the rise in cases that we're going to see in the next week or two. But yes, they're still climbing. As we said before, as long as you stay above that 298 pivot, most likely going to keep heading towards 331. Maybe a pullback coming in the next couple of days, probably towards the end of the week, but so far still climbing. Hey Jack, what's going on? Today I'm going to focus a little bit on Bitcoin instead of SPY. We're going to look at how Bitcoin failed like this, and kind of how you could have predicted the failure, traded the failure, stuff like that. I'm also going to do a small recap on SPY, but instead of doing the volume profile recap like we've been doing, I'm going to do a recap on just the price action, looking at kind of standard support and resistance techniques, and how you could have traded it that way. I think the volume profile analysis that we've been doing for the past couple of weeks, you guys have kind of gotten the hang of that by now. Hopefully you guys have already figured out kind of that method, right? We'll go back to it eventually, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. We're going to do some more kind of standard support and resistance stuff. Hey, Fortunate Key Toy, Georgette, and Bitmass. Good to see you guys. Yeah, let's get started. So, a couple of things here. Let me go over here. We'll go to a clean chart. Think it's possible to turn off the music? The music shouldn't be a problem. I can turn it down a little bit. That should be better. Have something playing in the background. But yeah, so let's get started. So the daily, I called out a couple of levels on Bitcoin in Discord that played out pretty much perfectly. We had the point of origin on the daily up here around 10,250, 10,3, which also lined up pretty much with the point of origin on the weekly, both of which were called out in Discord. And you can see how the daily was damn near perfect. You had a little bit of a wick above, but you were not able to close above. And then once you started to fail downward, you had a pretty strong failure. Same thing on the weekly. The weekly was more of your, I'll color code them. The weekly was more of a swing failure. The weekly had a pop above that level, and then you kind of failed below it. So once it re-failed 99 right here, you could have shorted that. Seeing that this was such a fast failure, unless you had like a market order there, you probably would have missed it. You can see how on basically every time frame, this is a one candle failure. That is a 1 minute failure, basically. That's quite exceptional. You rarely ever see stuff like that in one candle. That might be one of the largest 1 minute candles we've ever seen on Bitcoin. That is a near 9% failure in 1 minute. And if you include the second candle, it goes down another 7%. Okay? So from top to bottom, that is 15% in about a minute and a half. That's quite exceptional. Like I said, if you back test that and look for other candles like that, it is probably in the top 10 biggest 1 minute candles in Bitcoin's history. That's how rare that was. But looking back, You could have easily traded this with these resistance levels. You had resistance on the daily and resistance on the weekly. The daily level, that was the first test of that level, besides the immediate test way back here. That was the first time that it was tested from that failure. The weekly level, it's been tested a few times. We've had a couple of tests, about 3 little tests on these candles here. But this candle was one of the only swing failures, right? All of these were kind of just failures. This was more of a swing failure because it popped above it, it gained a little bit of strength above it, and then failed. Yeah, I lowered the music a little bit. It was just a little loud. Do you think on exo charts it was possible to see the dump? I'll go over exo charts here in a little bit. We'll take a look at the tick chart. Kitway said the one candle is a strict lesson in why you take profit. Not only that, it's a strict lesson in why you should have stop losses as well. So the funny thing is, I tweeted earlier back in the beginning of May that FOMO buyers were figuring out that buying the 10K break was a very bad trade. And then I retweeted it today and I said this still applies. Because the same exact thing happened. You broke 10K. Every time Bitcoin breaks 10K, every time without fail, all of social media goes crazy and they think that Bitcoin is heading to like 15,000, 20,000. They think that it's like the next bull run happening on Bitcoin. So there's always massive FOMO buyers above 10K. And we saw it this time as we saw it before. All of the buyers above 10K got obliterated. So if you were buying above 10K and you did not take profit, if you did not have a stop loss, you got obliterated. You might have even got liquidated if you were trading with high leverage. So basically anybody buying 10K, we'll buy 10K. Yeah, so if you were using anything above like, 6x? Anything above like 6 to 7 to 8x leverage, you got liquidated. That is insane. That's not even that high of leverage when you think about it. You could trade 10x, 25x, 50x. Like those are really high leverages, right? 5 to 6 to 7x leverage, those are pretty standard. That's not that high. I personally think it's high, but throughout the whole market, that's not that high compared to most traders. They're getting liquidated. That's how big of a move that was. We saw a 9 million candle here. 900 million candle here. And then we saw that almost exact amount, about 1,200 million here. So we had a 900 million pop, and then we saw a 1,200 million failure. 1,200 million is 1.2 billion. That's how significant that move was. Okay. But yeah, so the first things I wanted to go over just to show you guys how you could have caught that resistance. Very standard. I've been going over this since like the very first day I started streaming. The point of origin resistance here. Very clear resistance. Okay. A couple of other things you could have looked at. Let's go down to the lower time frames. Kind of have to zoom in a little bit here. So, a couple of things you could have looked at here. This doesn't give you a very clean distribution because it's so wide. But, regardless, this is still a distribution. Right? So we have a distribution here. And then look at what happens. Kitoy said the difference between MEX and all the other exchanges is crazy. It really is. MEX got way lower than most exchanges. Most exchanges, from what I've seen, are around low 9s. Around like 9.3, 9.2, 9.4. BitMEX went to 8.6. Incredible. Yeah, every time it breaks 10K, everyone's FOMO buying. It's one of those massive it's probably the most psychological number on Bitcoin. When people see that 10K break, they just get immense amounts of greed and FOMO, right? They assume that we're going to see another 2017. And every time, if you go back and backtest, if you bought it 10K and held on to it for like a week or so, almost every single time you would have lost. The only times you would have been right is like 2017 when we saw that massive run up, and then 2019 when we saw that massive run up. Every other time it broke, it was a failure. Yeah, I can go over a little bit of the liquidity stuff. I'm gonna make a video on liquidity soon, maybe later this week or next week. But I can go over it a little bit in detail. But going back to what I was saying, a couple of other ways that you could have traded this failure. If you guys use my accumulation distribution technique, you had your distribution high being put in here, your distribution low being put in there, and then you basically were just hovering towards that lower price the entire time. And then you had one little breakout here. You tried to get above that 50%, but you were not able to. So like I say in the technique video, if you're not able to get above that 50, that's a pretty bad sign. Because we should be able to get to the other side pretty easily here. If it's not able to get to that other side of the distribution, then it's weak. It's very weak, right? Especially since this time, it wasn't even able to get to 50 one time. It created the distribution, and then not a single time did you see it hit that mid-range. So that is extremely weak, right? So this right here, you could have shorted that. You could have waited for confirmation to short the break of the distribution low. You could have shorted that as well. I don't know if you would have got filled here because it was so quick. You might have got overloaded on pretty much any exchange. But yeah, so that's another way you could have shorted that. What else? Let's see. You could have gone. You could have used the indicators, and something that I mentioned in Discord, on nearly every single indicator, there were pivots. Every single time frame. Nearly every single time frame had a pivot towards the high and where it bounced. Now, some of them were better than others. The 4 hour seemed to be the best. The 4 hour had a pivot come in right here, around 10-1, and then you had this pivot way back here, around 87, get bounced pretty much perfectly. But every single time frame almost had a pivot on the high, had a pivot on the low. The daily didn't have a pivot on the high, but you did have a pivot on the low. You could have traded these pivots as well. The weekly also had a pivot down there as well. 87.50 on the weekly, 87.05 on the 4 hour. 8 hour had a pivot on the high, but pretty much every single time frame had a pivot on the high or the low, or both. So that is how you could have traded using the indicators as well. The 15-minute was beautiful. The 15-minute had a pivot damn near on the highest bar. So without these wicks, this was almost the highest bar. So once that pivot came in, you could have shorted the pivot. And then obviously you had a little bit of support coming in on the trail. And then you broke the trail. And you bounced off these... you bounced way lower than these pivots, but you closed almost right on these pivots. That's another way you could have traded it. You also had a bear div here. So the 15-minute, look at the Momo. 15-minute had a bear div on these highs. Very, very slight. It's hard to draw it, but it's very, very slight bear div here. Top warning on the Momo. The Momo was warning you of a top. You had a bear div all the way up. The pivot confirmed. And then you had that failure. Okay. Now I know all this is hindsight, but I go over all of these techniques in my videos and in my live streams and Discord. You guys just need to remember these patterns, right? So one way you could have traded the bottom is the same thing. You had the bounce off all those pivots down towards the lower wick, and then towards the closes, like we see on the 15, or sorry, the 5, you have a bull div here with a bottom warning. So bottom warning on the Momo, and then you have a bull div inside that bottom warning. You could have traded this bull div here, got in around 94 to 94.50, and then once you reclaim that pivot, you're now starting to get bullish. Okay? So now that you're above the trail, now that you're above the pivot, you are bullish until you reclaim these levels around 94.50. Okay? So just slowly following it up here. Let me see. Wow, Coinbase only went to 9.2. Yeah, a lot of exchanges were around the mid-9s. Fib level is genius. Yeah, the fib levels work out really well. Why did Coinbase only go to 9.2? It all depends on liquidations, right? So the BitMEX is known for grabbing the liquidations, the stop loss levels. So it's going to go a lot lower than the spot exchanges or the other exchanges. Digital, yeah, it's a spot exchange, exactly. Digital said the amount of money flow in spot is different than futures, definitely. And the spot exchanges don't have the kind of liquidations that you would see on margin exchanges. Now, Coinbase is a margin exchange as well. They do offer margin, but nowhere near the degree that BitMEX does. And nowhere near the volume. That is the main reason. The prices are not going to be the same on every exchange. This was a massive arbitrage opportunity. A massive arbitrage opportunity. Meaning that the market makers, Alameda, any of the big boys, when they see that discrepancy from exchange to exchange, they can take advantage of that and make a lot of money. And they have bots that do that automatically, so they don't even have to really think about it. They have bots that monitor the difference between these spot exchanges and the margin exchanges, and when it becomes a massive difference, and it becomes a tradable difference, they can make money on that, right? So, for example, like on BitMEX, when it nukes down to 86, but the spot exchange is still at 93 or 94, they can buy massive amount of contracts on BitMEX at 86 and instantly sell the same amount of contracts on Coinbase. So technically their position is net neutral. They have a net neutral position, meaning they're flat pretty much. But if it comes back to equilibrium and it comes back to that price of the higher exchange, the mid-9s, their long is going to be much more in profit than their short is losing. Okay? So if Coinbase is around 9.5 and BitMEX is around 8.6, they can buy, let's say, 1 million contracts here, sell 1 million contracts here. They're net neutral, meaning it doesn't really matter if price goes down or up. They would much prefer it to equalize, right? To kind of come towards an equilibrium. But when it retraces towards that mid-9, their long contracts are going to be very much profitable. And their short contracts are going to be barely losing any money. So this little difference is their profit. This difference right here is their loss. And they make all that money. It's a lot harder than I'm making it out to be, but that's basically what they do. It's the same thing that I used to do back on stream like months and months ago, like 6 months ago, towards a year ago, when we were constantly seeing a massive discrepancy between the forward futures price and the current price of Bitcoin, the perpetual price, right? So when Bitcoin's perpetual price is, say, around 95, and their forward futures price is around 10,000, okay, you have a $500 premium on that forward price. If you believe that that price, or sorry, that gap, that discrepancy is going to close, what you do is you short the forward futures price, which is the 10,000, and then you long the perpetual, which is 9.5. Okay. And then if price closes, you will make money on that premium closing. Now you will lose money if that spread widens. So if that premium goes from 500 to 1,000, you are going to lose money. Okay? And not only that, typically when you see a premium on the forward futures price, so the 10,000, if you see a premium on that, the perpetual is going to be paying funding. Okay? So if I short the 10,000 and I long the perpetual, I am typically going to be paying funding on my perpetual. So the longer it takes for that gap to close, I am going to be getting bled out by the funding. Okay? This is an extremely complex topic, so I know a lot of you guys are like, what the fuck am I talking about? But if you guys are pretty advanced traders, this will make sense for you guys. But all right, let me stop ranting about that. It's a little too complex for a lot of you guys. So let's go back to what we were talking about. But yeah, so you could have traded it with the levels. You could have traded it with distribution, pivots, a lot of things, divergence. Let me go to Exo here. Let me catch up with chat. Sorry, guys. I was going on a little rant there. You said, anyone trade on Binance? What's your thought on Binance? I don't trade on Binance. They don't allow U.S. citizens, and they've been doing a lot of shady stuff recently. I haven't seen anything too recently, but I know back when they first kicked off U.S. citizens, there was a lot of stuff popping up on social media that they were doing that was kind of shady. I can't remember it all off the top of my head, but I know there was at least like 3 or 4 instances of them doing stuff that was kind of like, it's a little weird. Digital said, did you see MGI and SSYS? I told you SSYS would break its downtrend this month. I have not looked at them recently, no. Yeah, there's that $20 looking really good. Beautiful. What was MGI? Oh, wow, yeah, MGI, massive gap up. A great call on that, man. You called that out around like 150, 170. What happened here? Did they get bought out by somebody? Up 156% since you called it out, dude. Very, very good call. Not sure what the hell is going on with MGI right now, but that's a really good call. He said, when I go to the ExoChart website for free trial, I don't see a lot of features and can't pay with fiat. Yeah, so they have a free trial. Well, it's not even a trial. It's like they have a free version, but it takes away a lot of their features, right? I have a paid version. I have an affiliate version that I've been given for free to show off and use. They don't pay me or anything. They just gave me an account to use. Jack said, I trade on Binance. I've had no issues. He said he's been trading since 2017 on Binance. Nice. Yeah, I liked Binance back when I used them. I had no issues either. They were really good. I just stopped using them when they kicked US off. He said, I was watching your video, part 1 on ExoChart. Do you know why with ExoCharts it's impossible to draw levels, Fibonacci, etc.? I've asked them to add that, so have a lot of other people. They said they're working on it, but they haven't added it yet. But yeah, that's one of the #1 recommendations is like drawing tools. I'm not sure why they don't allow it. It might have something to do with the way their system works. It might contradict with a lot of their levels or something, I don't know. No idea. Digital said, rumor of Western Union attempting to buy MoneyGram is floating around. Gotcha. Okay. Wells Fargo is going to stop its auto loan business. I didn't even know they had an auto loan business. The free version doesn't have much. Yeah, I've always had the paid version, so I'm not sure what the free version has. No, I don't know that platform. But all right, let's take a look at this. So, a couple of things here. We got to go back a little bit to get the previous levels. Let's actually do this on another chart. Go to volume profile here. Let's do this on the weekly. Yeah, I'm currently live streaming on YouTube and Twitch. Apparently we can trade and chart with the ATOS platform. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. Never seen that. But okay, so for my volume profile, guys, another way you could have traded this is when we see these upper levels here, and I can draw on this with a snipping tool. When we see these upper levels here, these value area highs, right? Like all these upper levels, think of this as like a distribution, right? So we're distributing. Here's like your lows and then your highs, right? So we have distribution highs up here. It's the same exact thought process that I use on my distribution technique. So here's your value area highs, which act as your distribution highs. So if this pops outside of this level and then fails back below it, that is a deviation, right? That's a sell signal. So we have the upper level here. This is the deviation. So when you start to break above it, it tries to give you that kind of bullish strength, right? It tries to find value, which it does actually. It finds a lot of value here. But then once it retraces below these levels, which are they're around 995 and then 10,000. So these two levels right here, once you break back below those levels, that is a short signal. You could have shorted around the 10,000 re-break just using the simple volume profile technique, right? It breaks above the value area highs, then it retraces below it. I've been talking about this for a long time. Very, very simple short signal right there, right? That's another way you could have traded it. I can go back to like a scalping sense. It's gonna be a little harder to go over because these ticks are gonna be so small. It's basically gonna be the same as what I talked about on the distribution technique. So if you're using like a very short-term chart, something like I'm showing now, this tick chart, I've gone over this in my ExoCharts videos. So when you're looking at a tick chart, the main thing that you want to look for is where is your tick trend, right? Are you trending upward? Are you trending downward? Where is your tick trend? Okay? Because the tick charts are very good at following their trends. They're very good at putting in higher lows and lower highs on kind of the same levels. Very, very common. So always pay attention to where your tick trend is when you're on your tick chart. So what we see here is it's more of a distribution. There is no trend really. You have kind of your highs and then you have kind of your lows, but you kind of have a tick trend down here on the lows, right? It's very minimal. Very minimal. But you kind of have a tick trend down here. I drew it as best as I could. You can see how on this level you're putting in these higher lows. You have one little deviation here, but pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4 tests there of that level. It kind of gives you like an ascending triangle where you have the flat highs and then you have the ascending lows. So that becomes your tick trend, right? And then we have an interior trend when on our breakout. So we have our breakout trend here. You see that? I talk about this in my ExoCharts videos. So if you guys haven't watched those, feel free to go watch those videos. But inside this tick trend here, this ascending triangle, we have this interior breakout trend, right? We're breaking out higher. You're putting in higher low after higher low. But then look at what you see here. You fail to bounce off that higher low, and then you retrace back into it as resistance. I talk about this in my video very clearly. So we break our trend. We fail to gain that trend, so now it's resistance. So once you start to fail downward here, that is a very clear shift from an uptrend to a downtrend, right? You are losing your buyers and you're gaining sellers, right? So right here, you see that failure on that high. You try to come back into that high, then you reject it. So any point in this little downtrend here, you could have shorted. You could have shorted the rejection of that initial high. You could have shorted the rejection of the lower high there. You could have shorted the break back into the ascending triangle. You could have shorted the break of the failure of the ascending triangle. So basically this entire way right here was giving you a short. Okay. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions? Do you guys understand how I'm getting these levels? I can zoom into this to make this more clear. You see how clear this is? I know to some of you guys it's not very clear, but if you've been looking at a tick chart for a long time, it's pretty clear. You see a breakout here, an uptrend. Higher low, higher low, higher low. Slightly a higher low, but then you put in a lower high, and then boom, you fell downward, right? You see that? Here's your trend. You break your trend. You try to go back and create a new trend, but then you fail. So this is like your very first red flag right here. Boom, red flag. And then boom, second red flag. You break into a new low. And then third red flag. You retest that new low, or sorry, that previous low as resistance. So this point right here, very clear. And then this point right here, very clear. Looks like a head and shoulders on the tick chart. Yeah, it does, Rover. Yeah. It looks like a little miniature head and shoulders, correct. And it's the same thought process, right? Same thought process as a head and shoulders. You have kind of that higher high, but then you put in a lower high. So that initial support right here, you have failed, right? That's the neckline. You try to reclaim the neckline and you get rejected. So you could have shorted the right shoulder. You could have shorted the neckline break. You could have shorted the previous failure after that. Or sorry, the consecutive failure after that, excuse me. And then it's just literally just riding it all the way down. You had one little green bar there, nuked. Nuked, nuked, nuked. Little green bar there, nuked. And then you finally start to see a little bit of price action coming in. Not a whole lot. The reason these are not shaded in and it's just completely blowing through them, it's because these are not being traded. These are not trades, right? These are mainly just liquidations. This is mainly just people getting obliterated. Were you watching exocharts when the dump happened? No, I was not, actually. I was actually not even at my computer. I just went to go take a shower when that dump happened. He said, did Delta CVD show an early sign of the dump? So not really an early sign, no. This would be the CVD right here. I mean, I guess you can almost consider this an early sign, I guess, because what do we see here? on the CVD, it's going from very negative to trying to flip positive, but then it fails to flip positive. Yeah, I guess that's kind of an early warning sign, but it's not a very strong sign, I guess. You guys see what I'm saying? You're negative, you try to claim that positive delta, and then you get nuked. So that was kind of a warning sign there. This little failure right here. The delta bars, I can take a look at the delta bars. Yeah, so I talk about this on the video. This was a good sign here. So on the video, I talk about how when you turn very dark green, but then you shift away from that. So this is actually a bad example because this is shifting due to a new session. But nonetheless, when you go from a very high positive delta, and then you start losing that delta. So when you start going from, let me see if I can find an example. So all these examples are kind of bad because they're breaking from sessions. They're not breaking from price action. What I mean by that is the sessions, when you start a new session, it gets rid of your delta. You start from scratch. So it's always going to get rid of the shading. So these are all bad examples. But if you see something turn very dark green like this, that means that the buyers are in full control. The buyers are just obliterating the sellers. You have a very positive buy delta. If that buy delta starts to turn like lighter green, or you lose the green completely, that's a sign that the buyers have lost strength, right? So kind of what we're seeing here on the red. So you see how the red, it goes from neutral to very red back to neutral? That is a sign that the sellers are losing strength. And you see how we're starting to climb here? We're climbing because the sellers are losing strength. But look at what we're seeing. The sellers are starting to gain that strength again. So you see how it's going from dark red to white, which is neutral, back to kind of a light red. So the sellers are slowly gaining control again. Thoughts on Palladium? I'll take a look at it. Can you look at Baba? Yeah, I'll take a look at it. Digital said, I think Bitcoin is poised to go lower, maybe even test the 200 EMA on the daily. I'll take a look at that as well. Jack said, yeah, I think it will go lower. Georgette said, what is the new session? The new session is a new day, right? So every new day on Bitcoin, which is, I believe it's 8 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Eastern. It's 8 p.m. Eastern. Or no, sorry, 7 p.m. Eastern is a new day on Bitcoin. It goes for 24 hours, but it's technically a new day. So every new session, it will bring the delta back to neutral. This is disgusting what we're seeing on the TPO. Absolutely disgusting. There's like no tradable price action here. But yeah, going back to this, what Palladium? What is the Palladium? Is there Palladium futures? Yeah, futures right here, PA. There we go. Weekly looks bearish. Kind of a bear flag, rejecting the trail, multiple sell signals. Daily, slightly bullish. Kind of have a little bit of an uptrend here. Bouncing off the trail, a couple of buy signals there. Not a whole lot of momentum. You're in a what is it called? Like a bilateral triangle. There's like no clear direction. But yeah, I'd say for right now it's slightly bullish, excuse me. If it starts to climb towards like 2100, that's where your clear resistance is. Breaks above 2100, looks pretty good. Which would also be the weekly trail. So basically anything above 2100 is really good. What else did you guys... You talked about BABA. Wasn't BABA getting destroyed because of the China news? Yeah, it got sold off a little bit. BABA looks pretty bullish. Yeah, it looks pretty bullish. You're bouncing off a daily pivot. You have a green bar on the OTS, which means that your trend is bullish. Looks like you're putting in a nice little higher trend here too. You are coming into resistance, but the resistance has already been tested. You had that perfect test right there and then a failure. Untested level around 228. So you could break out to 228. Anything above the trail, anything above this trend is slightly bullish. As we saw on something like this. You want to see that momentum start to come in though. You see the momentum here? Look at the difference between the momentum here and the momentum here. There is like no momentum, right? But during something like this, that black to white, you start breaking resistance. Then you get that momentum coming in, right? So if that momentum comes in like we see on the previous trend, you could easily start to form a trend just like that. Yeah, I looked at SSYS earlier. Looks pretty good. He broke above the pivot, doing the same thing that like Baba's doing. Kind of have like a higher trend. Good momentum coming in as well. As long as you maintain that momentum, you should be good. Maintain that momentum. Watch for dips. Down to the trend. Can just climb all the way up. Coming towards that pivot around 22. Thoughts on gold? I can't talk too much about gold because I do put that in the weekly write-up. I can give you a brief little look at it. It's hard to say things on gold though, because I do have the stuff in Discord. What I will say about gold is it looks to be losing steam, right? So it's losing steam. The buy pressure seems to be weakening. It's kind of forming like a rollover pattern where it looks like it wants to roll over a little bit, but there's no real solid confirmation. That's all I'll say about gold. But gold, it looks to be losing steam. That's what I'll say. If you guys want a more solid take on gold, look at my weekly write-up on gold. We've been spot on gold the past couple of weeks. We've been spot on gold basically since the beginning of the write-ups, but the last couple of weeks have been really good. But yeah, all right, we got 10 minutes left on the U.S. market. I'm going to go over the U.S. market a little bit. Euro USD, I'll take a look at it, Kitoy. Georgette said, can you show us on Exo where to go to see price action on Bitcoin? I'm on TradingView, Bitcoin, USDT, Binance. When I watch the candle in 5 minutes. Hold on, I'm trying to understand your question. Can you show us on Exo where to go to see price action? So on Exo, it's already set up for Bitcoin. So it's right on the top, XBT USD. It's already set up for that. On TradingView, I use XBT USD. So I use the same ticker. These are the tickers that I use for Bitcoin. Oh, sorry, Keith, you wanted to see Euro. Let's take a look at Euro. Euro, really strong uptrend here on the 1 hour. Buy signals coming in. Basically every single buy signal played out. It's continuing that kind of bull flag breakout pattern where you just kind of move up, consolidate, move up, consolidate, move up. you can see that you're just breaking out of these pivots. So as long as it continues that pattern, it looks pretty bullish on the short term. Long term, okay, long term, a little bit of resistance. You're bouncing off that pivot currently. So if you do close below this pivot on the daily, you probably will head lower. I'd watch for that 1 hour trend to break. If that 1 hour trend breaks, that will confirm that failure on the pivot. Weekly looks really good, actually. Weekly looks really good. Looks like you're trying to break a long downtrend. You can see how all these sell signals on the way down were playing out. But now we're finally starting to break above it. So long term looks really good. This actually lines up with the short term 1 hour and the daily. Because what the daily and the 1 hour say is they say that you should be pulling back for a little bit. But then the weekly, if it pulls back a little bit here, it's going to gain support. So this lines up really well. This looks like it wants to pull back a little bit, and then it should continue higher. He said, what's the name of your orange and blue pivot indicator? Would like to try it on my charts. It's one of our premium indicators. It's the Oasis Trading Suite. It's on our website. You can check it out. We have $10 off the monthly right now with code 10OFF, but it is one of our premium indicators. It's on oasistrading.io. It is the Oasis Trading Suite. We don't offer free trials right now. We offer free trials to our Discord members. I did think about opening free trials to everybody for like a special occasion, mainly because we hit 2,000 subs on YouTube, which I forgot to appreciate you guys for that. We hit 2,000 subs finally on YouTube, guys, which is actually insane. I did not expect to hit 2,000 subs this quickly. I did realize that YouTube was going to be the #1 platform. We took over the YouTube community, outgrew the Twitter community and the Twitch community almost combined. So probably in the next month or two, we will beat all of my platforms combined on YouTube. So you guys are absolutely incredible on YouTube. Appreciate all the support, man. And I think one of the things that I will do for an appreciation for you guys is anybody, not just our Discord members, if you guys want to try out the indicators, I will be posting something on Twitter. I'll be posting something on Twitter probably later today or tomorrow for you guys to participate. So it'll probably just be like, make sure to be following and then retweet the tweet and then put your TradingView name in the comments, and I'll give you guys a trial. So that will probably be later today or tomorrow. So if you guys are looking to get trials for the indicators, make sure to keep an eye on my Twitter. My Twitter is Deja Brew Trades. It's at the top of the screen. You guys can follow me on Twitter. And you'll see that there. You said, do you think that we can use exo charts to identify an early sign of a dump and pump? Yeah, definitely. I think footprint charts, stuff like bookmap, like heat map charts, and trade aggregators. I actually had that exact question in Discord not too long ago. But yeah, trade aggregators, the ones that show you big size orders, I don't like using those very much, but if you're scalping, they're pretty helpful. So anything that shows you big size orders coming in, that's an aggregator, right? A heat map like bookmap, trading light, tensor charts, there's a bunch of them. Any of the heat maps are pretty good. They'll show you where the big orders are being placed. And finally, the footprint charts, right? So the footprint charts, anything that shows you order flow, how orders are coming in, how they're flowing from the buy side, sell side, stuff like that, that's going to help you as well. Do you have a heat map tutorial on exocharts? No, I do not. There's no heat map on exocharts. There is a heat map on Trading Light and Bookmap. I think I'm pretty sure I did make a bookmap video not too long ago, like a month or two ago. I don't know if I have it saved in my playlist, but I'm pretty sure I made a bookmap video before. Let me take a look. Is there a way to search my videos? Let me Control F this, see if it works. No, it didn't work. Yeah, I'm not sure how to search my videos, but I think I have 1 or 2 videos on Bookmap. It's really simple though. There's really no need for videos on stuff like that. What it shows you is if we're looking at a heat map and there's a bunch of orders layered right here. Okay, now that I think about it, I can actually include this in my liquidity video. So when I make a video about liquidity, I can include the heat map stuff because it ties hand in hand with the liquidity stuff. So later this week or next week, we'll talk more about this. But for a little short tip, it's basically just like if we're seeing price, like let's say price breaks out here, and then we start to consolidate like this, and then we see a bunch of walls above the price right here, but then we don't see any walls below the price until like, let's say like right here, then what price will typically do is it will want to go lower to grab those walls, right? But sometimes before it does that, it will want to grab the liquidity, right? So like all of these levels here are liquidity levels. It's all where the fresh liquidity is. Meaning that if some big whale wants to short this, he can't just market short it here. He wants to short it higher. So what does he have to do? He has to manipulate the price, maybe with some very small walls. So maybe he'll put in some really small walls below price. Nothing like too massive, because he doesn't want to get filled on really big trades. He just wants to manipulate the price. Let's say he puts in some really small walls here, and then price bounces off of them and goes higher to fill his real orders. And then once his real orders are filled, you'll see all of these orders disappear. Okay? So if you see the supports disappear, once the resistance has been taken, that is typically a trap, and it will want to go lower. And you'll see that happen a lot of times with Bitcoin because they want to go for liquidity. It's big players looking for liquidity, right? And I'll talk about that in a later video. Yeah, they're basically fake orders, like spoofing orders, right? They're orders that they don't really want them to be filled. They want them to look like they want to be filled, so people will panic and like buy with them. We saw this all the way up basically when we were looking at Bitcoin. All the way up here, it was being spoofed the entire way. Basically, all of these levels here were being spoofed. You had fake buy walls coming in to push price higher, which is not healthy, which is why we're seeing historic rejections happening. Let's see. Let me catch up with chat. Keytoy said, "Are you considering a switch to YouTube completely?" I considered it, but right now it doesn't hurt me at all to stream on Twitch and YouTube. You know what I mean? Like there's no downside. But if I was ever at a point where YouTube was like gonna offer me like what do they call it? Partnership? It's I don't know what it's called on YouTube, like partnership or whatever. Then yeah, I would switch exclusively to YouTube. Rover said, you will explode soon. Your videos are educational, learning so much. Thanks. Yeah, no problem, man. Appreciate you being here. Rover also said, Scalpex 2 can show you some hidden orders. I've never seen Scalpex. Let me see. How do you identify big orders that are in fact spoofing or aka fake orders? It's really hard to give you a straight answer on that. It depends on what is happening in the trend and like why those orders are coming in. Are those orders staying there, or are they kind of disappearing and then coming back? There's a lot of variables, right? But yeah, if the orders are like coming in slowly and then disappearing, they're probably fake. If they're coming in and then price starts to push higher and then they disappear, they're probably fake. Stuff like that. No, I don't think I have that video in any of the playlist. Let me see. Yeah, I got all the questions. But yeah, let's go back to SPY here. I think the market closed. So SPY, as the name of my video today suggests, it's still continuing to ignore all bad news, right? So we have riots, we have coronavirus, we have lockdowns, we have the China deal failing. We got all kinds of stuff, right? And it doesn't care. It continues to not care. And it continues to climb. So in the meantime, you want to be very careful shorting it, but just understand that, like I talked about last stream, you want to keep a good eye on the VIX, right? If the VIX starts to climb and the SPY starts to fail, then we could really start to see a correction that we've been waiting on, right? So keep an eye on the VIX. But until then, there's really no reason to bet against this, right? It's the same thing that I said earlier about those other things that we looked at. As long as you're maintaining this uptrend, as long as you're maintaining above the trail, above the pivots, there's no real reason to bet against this, right? It will just continue higher as long as the buyers are buying every single dip. Now, one of the scariest things about this chart is the volume is pitiful. There is like no volume here, right? But if we compare the volume to previous volume, it's actually not that bad. But if we're looking at relative volume, it's pretty bad. Relative meaning compared to the capitulation. But if you look at the average, it's pretty much back to average. So it's pretty standard. But in terms of relative volume compared to that recent sell-off, the buyers aren't really that strong here. With that said, we probably should see some minor corrections like this, but nothing major. Until that 298 to like 293, this little support here, until that level is broken, it's going to continue higher to 331. There's no reason for it to stop, really. You have a little bit of resistance around 312, a little bit back around like 321, but 331 is the main target. Okay. But we can go over today's price action. Today's price action was pretty standard. If we're looking at a 15-minute time frame, you were basically bullish all day long. You were green on the OTS or white on my chart. You broke a pivot, came back for a retest, buy signal, came back for a retest right on the close of the day, multiple buy signals, and then you close the day pumping up. So pretty much bullish throughout the entire day. We can go to a lower time frame here. You can see exactly what happened, and I'll mark out the open. The open was right here. We had a pivot come in right on the open, stayed above the trail pretty much the entire morning session, got a little choppy here. You had a bull div come in here, nice beautiful bull div, break out to the upside, but then you failed back down into that previous distribution. right? So you had a previous distribution be tested, but then you instantly get engulfed. Retest, engulf. You could have longed that engulfing there if you're trading for a longer time frame, right? Little bit of scary resistance coming in here. You had that trail give you a couple of sell signals. You also had that pivot act as resistance. But once you were able to break through that resistance, it turned into support. So you had a nice little uptrend here, small bear div. Look at the Momo, small bear div here. So you could have shorted that bear div. Right back down into the trail, gave you multiple buy signals, ended up failing. But then look at where you bounced. You bounced right off that pivot again. That pivot, which was resistance, now turned into support. Very clear double bottom off that support. And then boom, popped up, right? Let me see. You said, how long did it take you to master exocharts? So exocharts, I use exocharts the way that I use volume profile already. So it didn't take me long, really, because I'm already. It's not like a new technique. It's all older stuff. And everything that I do on exocharts, I've been doing for years. The tick chart stuff I've been doing, that's just standard price action. The volume profile stuff is just volume profile trading, right? The TPO stuff is just volume profile trading. The delta bars was the only thing that I had to like learn straight from exocharts, because I never traded solely on delta bars. That was a new thing. But same thing on that. I just treated delta bars as standard price action. I looked for higher lows, lower highs, stuff like that. I looked for reversal signals. Yeah, I've been using volume profile and trading view. You can use it the same way. And I've been showing that the past couple of weeks. I showed in my volume profile video, all my volume profile videos really, on YouTube. Robert said, look at the 3090 max. You're looking at 3090 max. Looking at 3088. $30.90, Yeah, it's like the same level that I'm watching, just a little lower. I'm watching this little level right here. This kind of dead cat bounce. You had that dead cat come in. So I'm watching that same level. Yours is just a little lower. He said, I found you on YouTube. Thank you for your exocharts video. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I've got a lot of other videos that relate to exocharts, like the volume profile stuff, any of my live streams that go over volume profile. Do you prefer volume profile on TradingView or exocharts? I use them for different things. So on exocharts, so for like Bitcoin trading, I use this volume profile setup with like the TPOs and whatnot. And then for like my day-to-day SPY trading, I use the volume profile right here, the session profile. But you can basically do the same exact stuff on both. TradingView doesn't have the TPO, which is a time-based volume profile instead of a volume-based. They're pretty much exactly the same, just slightly different. Hey, Jack, appreciate that, man. Pretty balanced day today, except for that breakout on the end of the day. You kind of reclaimed a VWAP here, and then you shot up and broke the value area high. But that's basically it, guys. That's all I wanted to go over today. We went over Bitcoin. I did a lot of analysis requests for you guys. Did a little small rant on how to trade arbitrage, futures, hedging. What else do we talk about? Did the SPY recap. Probably later this week or next week, I'll talk about liquidity and kind of how to trade liquidity, look for liquidity levels, stuff like that. Probably today or tomorrow, I will be posting a tweet on Twitter that all you'll have to do is make sure you're following, make sure you retweet the tweet, and then post your TradingView username in the comments and whatever indicator you want to trial. You can only trial one at a time. I'm not going to like let you trial all of them at the same time. But whichever one you want to trial, you can just post the indicator, post your TradingView username, and then I'll give you guys some trials. This is the first time we've ever really done trials, except for way back before we released the indicators. So if you want to trial them, make sure you get involved. I'll probably do a couple of them, so if you guys want to try multiples, I'll probably do one next week as well. So you can try one out this week and then try one out next week. And I'll probably do a couple so you guys can try out a couple. But yeah, guys, that's it for today. Appreciate you guys being here. Once again, thank you for the 2,000 subs on YouTube. Absolutely insane. Appreciate all you guys on Twitch as well. All you guys who follow on Twitter. Any way you guys support, thank you for being around. I'm going to keep doing what I do as long as you guys keep supporting me. So I appreciate you guys. I will be streaming tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. You guys have a good night. I'll see you later.